Have you ever wondered why the woman who once looked at you like you were the only man alive now barely looks at you at all? She used to light up when you walked into the room. Her hands would reach for you, her voice softening just for you. She said she loved your presence. She said you made her feel safe. She said she'd never felt this before. And you believed her not because you were naive, but because everything about her at that moment felt real. Her laughter, her tears, the way she'd fall asleep on your chest like the world outside no longer mattered. But now she shrinks when you speak. She flinches when you reach out. Her tone cuts. Her body closes. She used to crave your attention. Now it feels like she resents it. What happened? You rack your brain. Was it something you did? Something you didn't do? You go back and examine every conversation, every text, every glance. You analyze your own behavior, thinking maybe if you find the mistake, you can fix it. That's what good men do. They try to make it right. But here's the brutal truth. It wasn't always about what you did. Sometimes it's about what she felt and no longer feels. Women change when their emotional high wears off. That initial rush, that chemical flood that made her want you so badly it wasn't meant to last. It's nature's trap. Biology floods her with oxytocin, with dopamine, with desire and urgency. And in that state, she believes everything she says. She means it, in the moment. She loves the way you touch her. She needs your voice in the middle of the night. She can't imagine being without you. But as the novelty fades, as reality returns, so does something else: boredom, doubt, a restless voice whispering, "Is this it?" This is the part most men don't understand. You think the love she gave was a promise. You think the softness was a foundation. But for many women, it's not a commitment, it's a feeling. And feelings shift, especially in today's world, where attention is a currency and options are endless, where dopamine is cheaper than discipline, where loyalty is romanticized but rarely practiced. You showed up. You gave, you listened. You didn't cheat, you didn't lie, you didn't play games. And somewhere along the way, she stopped being drawn to you, not because you failed, but because she already had you. And once she felt that security, once she realized you weren't going to run, the chase was over. The tension died, and with it, so did the spark, at least for her. But here's where it gets darker. Instead of owning that shift, instead of telling you the truth that her feelings have changed and she no longer desires what she once did, many women will punish you for it. Quietly, subtly, she'll blame you. She'll say you've changed, that you're not as fun, not as present, not as driven. She'll accuse you of the very things her boredom created. She'll make you doubt yourself, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she doesn't want to feel guilty for losing interest in someone who treated her well. This is psychological projection at its finest. She'll push you away and ask why you're distant. She'll start withholding affection and then resent you for not initiating. She'll test your patience, your pride, your presence, and the moment you snap, the moment you react. She'll say, "See, you're the problem." And if you're like most men, you'll believe it, because you were taught that a good man takes responsibility, that if a woman is unhappy, it must be your fault. You'll try harder, you'll give more, you'll ignore your gut, silence your boundaries, and overcompensate, hoping that if you can just remind her of how good you were, she'll come back. But she won't, because the version of you she fell for wasn't the one trying to fix her feelings. It was the one standing tall in his own. It was the man who had a life she wanted to be part of. The man who wasn't chasing, wasn't clinging, wasn't negotiating for love. That's the paradox. The moment you started centering her over your purpose, the moment you made her your emotional compass, you lost the very gravity that drew her in. You didn't change in a bad way, you became available. And in her world, availability isn't always attractive. especially not in a culture where chaos feels like passion and peace feels like boredom. So now you sit there, wondering how someone who loved you so deeply could turn so cold. And the answer is simple. She didn't just fall out of love. She fell back into herself, into her impulses, into her restlessness, into the part of her that chases emotion, not stability. And no amount of good intentions on your part will bring back a woman who no longer feels the chemical need to stay. So what do? That's the question that eats away at you. Because deep down, you still care. You still want her to look at you the way she once did. You want to believe that if you just become better, she'll come back. That the love can be reignited. That the coldness is just a phase. And this is where the real trap begins. Because the moment you try to earn back what was once freely given, you hand her the power to define your worth. You start chasing the memory of who she was, not realizing she's no longer that woman. And worse, you start shrinking yourself to fit the mold of who she says you should be. You try to be more patient, more available, more sensitive. You tiptoe around her moods, hoping not to push too far, hoping not to lose what little connection is left. But every time you compromise your instincts to maintain the relationship, you teach her something dangerous: that your love is flexible, negotiable, and ultimately desperate. And let me tell you something she'll never say out loud. A woman doesn't respect a man who bends too far to keep her. She may tolerate him, she may use him, she may even cry in his arms when things feel uncertain, but respect, desire. Because in her mind, if you truly had value, you wouldn't need to prove it. You wouldn't chase. You wouldn't be afraid of her absence. This is the hidden game most men never see. Not because they're stupid, not because they're weak, but because they were taught to be good, to fix, to solve, to love harder when things get hard. No one ever told them that in some relationships. The more you give, the more invisible you become. Because some women don't want stability, they want stimulation, they want emotion, they want chaos that feels like passion and highs that feel like love. So when you give peace, they interpret it as emptiness. When you offer consistency, they call it routine. When you stop arguing and just listen, they say you're distant. And here's the cruel irony: had you been less available, less eager, less safe, they might still be craving you. Not because that's healthy, but because that's how their emotional pattern was wired. You need to understand something about human behavior, especially in the realm of attraction. We're not drawn to what's good for us. We're drawn to what stimulates us. And if a woman's emotional blueprint was built around unpredictability, emotional highs and lows, and validation chasing, then your steady, grounded love feels like a foreign language. At first, she loves it. It feels healing. But over time, it feels uncomfortable. Why? Because she doesn't know how to receive it without questioning if it's real. Or worse, she gets bored, and so she starts testing you. She pulls away. She becomes irritable over small things. She flirts with detachment, not because she wants to leave, but because she wants to feel something. And if your reaction is to get quieter, more cautious, more apologetic, she'll interpret that as weakness. That's when you see it: the disdain, the cold shoulder, the eye rolls, the sighs. And when you confront her, she'll say, "You've changed." She'll say, "It's not the same anymore." And she's right, it's not. Because you stopped being the man she chased and became the man chasing her. And that shift, whether she admits it or not, kills attraction. This isn't about being cold. It's not about being an asshole. It's about emotional polarity. If you abandon your sense of self to preserve a connection, the connection rots from within. Because it becomes built on your fear of loss, not on mutual respect. The painful truth is that some women change after loving a man, not because he failed her, but because he gave her what she thought she wanted. And once she got it, she didn't know how to hold it. Or worse, she realized she never valued it to begin with. She just wanted the chase, the drama, the narrative of this time. It's different. But when it was different, when it was real, it wasn't thrilling anymore. And now you're left cleaning up the emotional wreckage of a love you never thought would crash, wondering how something that felt so mutual could become so one-sided. You're staring at the ghost of what once was, trying to resuscitate a woman who emotionally checked out months ago, and every attempt to fix it, to understand it, only drives her further into herself and you further away from your own center. That's the cost, not just the relationship, but your identity, your clarity, your peace. And unless you learn to stop chasing what changed, you'll keep sacrificing yourself for someone who already made the decision, she just hasn't said it out loud yet. And when she finally does say it, whether through silence, distance, or the classic, "I need time to think," it won't feel like a clean break. It will feel like a slow death. Because she won't leave you with closure. She'll leave you with confusion, with questions, with guilt that doesn't belong to you. And you'll carry it, because you were taught that men don't walk away from women they love. That real men fight. That they endure. But fighting for something that's already gone isn't strength. It's self-destruction. You'll scroll through old photos. You'll replay the good moments like a film stuck on loop. You'll analyze the last few weeks, searching for a sign, a clue, something you missed. And what you'll find is this: she started pulling away the moment she felt certain of your love. Not because your love was lacking, but because certainty killed the tension. Because in her mind, once she had you, the mystery was gone. And for women who crave emotional highs over emotional depth, mystery is everything. You'll feel like you were used, and in some ways, you were used for your attention, used for the way you made her feel when she was uncertain, when she was chasing, because once she had your heart fully, openly, unapologetically, she no longer had to work for it. And for some women, if they're not working for it, they stop valuing it. This is the brutal dynamic no one warns you about. That love, real love, isn't enough for someone who doesn't know how to sit in peace, for someone who confuses calm with emptiness, who grew up equating chaos with passion. She will love you, yes, but she will resent the part of you that doesn't mirror her inner conflict. And when you give her the opposite of her trauma stability, calm, presence, she'll find ways to sabotage it. You'll think you're failing her, but in reality, you're just not playing the same game. And this is where the pattern repeats for men who don't wake up. You'll meet another woman, one who says all the right things, one who mirrors the last, and you'll fall in the same way, slowly, carefully, with hope in your heart. You'll give, you'll commit, you'll show up, and it will happen again. The warmth will turn cold, the softness will harden, the laughter will fade into indifference. And you'll wonder, is it me? But the real question is, when are you going to stop tying your worth to how long a woman stays? Because here's the truth. No one tells you most men who are steady, grounded, loyal. They're not celebrated in the moment. They're tolerated, overlooked, taken for granted until they're gone. And then, suddenly, she remembers your value. But by then, you're not there to see it, because you've finally learned what your presence is worth. That shift, that quiet detachment is what frees you. Not bitterness, not rage, but the realization that you don't need to fight for someone who stopped fighting for you. That you don't need to negotiate your love with someone addicted to drama. That you don't need to prove your value to someone who only sees it in absence. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for being emotionally available. You stop chasing ghosts. And in that silence, something strange happens. You start to rebuild. Not for her, not for the next woman, but for you. You start to reclaim your energy, your focus, your standards. You stop giving everything to people who haven't earned it. You stop trying to teach women how to love you, because the right one won't need the lesson, she'll already speak the language. But before that happens, you have to sit in the discomfort, the loss, the grief of being discarded by someone who once called you everything. You have to feel it, not escape it, not numb it, not fill the void with another woman. You have to let it burn away the illusion that love should be earned by overextending yourself. Because once that illusion dies, a new kind of man is born. A man who doesn't get attached to potential. A man who watches behavior, not words. A man who values his peace more than her approval. And when she starts to shift, when the warmth cools, when the attention fades, he doesn't beg, he doesn't chase, he doesn't panic. He observes. He lets her go if she wants to go. Not because he doesn't care, but because he refuses to hold on to someone who needs distance to feel alive. That's when the game changes. Not because you became cold, but because you finally became clear. That clarity, it doesn't come overnight. It comes through fire, through betrayal that slices deeper because you were honest, through watching the woman who once begged for your time now treat your presence like a burden, through being the man who did everything right, only to be left in silence, while someone who gives her nothing becomes the one she chases. That's when it breaks. The illusion, the lie you were sold, the lie that love is always enough, that effort always wins, that if you just listen, support, stay soft, she'll stay. But you learned the hard way that some women don't want peace, they want intensity, they want the thrill of never knowing. And when you stop being the storm, they stop being the flame. That's when it becomes clear her behavior was never about you. It was about the high she needed. And once the high wore off, so did the affection. But you kept showing up, because that's how you were built. Not to manipulate, not to play games, but to love fully, to commit deeply, to hold steady when the world shakes. And that's exactly why it hurt more. Because you gave from a real place, because you didn't pretend, because when she said she needed you, you believed her, you were there, you were loyal, you were constant, and she left anyway. That kind of loss doesn't just bruise your ego, it fractures your sense of reality. You look in the mirror and wonder what you missed. You start to mistrust your own instincts. You wonder if maybe being that kind of man just doesn't work anymore. And some part of you, the tired part, wants to shut it all down, to never open again. But let me tell you something. It wasn't your heart that failed. It was your boundaries. You stayed too long in a place where you weren't respected. You kept pouring into a woman who stopped showing up. You lowered your standards in the name of love. And she read that as weakness, not because she's evil, but because that's how emotional dynamics work. You taught her how to treat you, not through your words, but through your tolerance. And the moment you stopped expecting reciprocity, the moment you allowed coldness without confrontation, distance without discussion, withdrawal without accountability, you became a mirror for her apathy. She lost interest, not because you weren't enough, but because you refused to hold her accountable to the love she once claimed. That's not love. That's emotional self-erasure. And every time you do it, every time you silence your needs, every time you justify disrespect in the name of patience, you teach her that her comfort matters more than your self-respect. That's the pattern that has to end. Because you can't save a relationship by abandoning yourself. You can't make her feel what she no longer feels. You can't remind her of your value if she never truly saw it. You can't be enough for a woman who is addicted to emotional instability, and you shouldn't try. What you can do, what you must do, is return to yourself. Not the version of you she liked, not the version of you who made her laugh, but the version of you who never needed her approval to feel like a man. The version of you who knows his worth without needing a woman to reflect it back. The version of you who sees her change not as a failure, but as information. She's pulling away, let her. She's becoming colder, say less. She's suddenly unsure, don't convince, don't chase, don't beg. Because if you have to beg for love, it isn't love, it's a transaction. And men who know their value don't negotiate with silence. They don't barter for affection. They don't trade their self-respect for the possibility of being chosen again. They walk, not with rage, not with drama, but with finality. Because the most powerful thing you can do in a world that tries to make men emotionally desperate is to not need anyone who needs you to suffer first. Let that be the shift. Let that be the wake-up call. You are not broken because she left. You are not lost because she changed. You are not less of a man because she stopped loving you. You are only lost when you stay where your soul is starving. You are only broken when you keep giving to someone who no longer sees the gift. And when you finally get quiet, when you finally stop proving, you'll hear the voice you've been silencing all along. The one that says it's time to come back. To your center, to your standard, to your self-worth. Because the woman you thought you needed was never the source of your value. She was just the mirror showing you how easily you were willing to forget it. And now you remember, not all at once, not in some grand, victorious moment, but in the small, painful stillness that follows her absence. When the texts stop, when the bed is cold, when no one is there to ask how your day went, that's when it starts. You stop chasing closure, you stop rehearsing the words you wish you had said, you stop checking her page, wondering if she's moved on, you stop asking yourself if he's better, richer, more exciting, because none of it matters anymore. What matters is this: you survived. She left and you're still breathing. She changed and you didn't crumble. And maybe for the first time in your life, you realize something most men never do. Her love was not your salvation. Her approval was not your oxygen. Her loyalty was not your responsibility. You gave what you could. You showed up as a man, and she made her choice. Now it's your turn, because this isn't just about her. It never was. It's about every time you gave without return. Every time you stayed when you should have walked. Every time you silenced your gut because you didn't want to seem too much, too needy, too emotional. You wore that mask so long it started to feel like your face. The one that smiles when she disrespects you. The one that stays calm when she pulls away. The one that pretends everything is fine while your soul rots behind your eyes. You played the good man and she didn't stay. You played the calm man and she still drifted. You gave her safety, loyalty, presence, and she got bored. Do you understand yet? This isn't about being a better boyfriend. It's about becoming a better man, not for her, but for yourself. That starts when you stop waiting for her to come back. When you stop measuring your worth by how a woman reacts to you. When you stop believing that you have to suffer to be loved. That's the part no one teaches you. That masculine strength isn't about dominance or stoicism or pretending nothing affects you. It's about discernment, self-control, self-respect. It's about the moment you look at a woman pulling away and you let her, not out of spite, but because your peace is no longer negotiable, because you finally know what it costs to chase someone who treats your presence like a convenience. Because you finally see the lie behind the love bombing, the soul gazing, the passion, and understand that if it disappears when you stop entertaining her chaos, it was never real to begin with. And the moment you hold that line not emotionally, but psychologically you become untouchable. She might come back. And if she does, you won't need revenge. You won't need to gloat. You won't need to show her what she missed. You'll just look at her with the eyes of a man who has seen the game for what it is and walked away. Because you don't want the woman who needs to leave to appreciate you. You want the woman who sees you while you're still here and honors it. But you'll never find her if you keep lowering yourself for women who only respond to distance, confusion, or indifference. You think that being consistent is boring. Fine. Be boring to women who thrive on chaos. You think not reacting makes you cold. Fine. Be cold to women who use your warmth as a weapon, because the moment you step back, detach, and return to your center, everything changes. You don't raise your voice. You don't beg. You don't negotiate. You watch. You protect your peace. You let her speak through her actions and you believe her the first time. That's what turns the pain into power. Not by becoming hard, but by becoming whole. You no longer need her to see your value because you've finally seen it for yourself. And when she says, "You've changed," you won't flinch. You'll smile because she's right. You did. You stopped loving women more than yourself. You stopped waiting to be chosen. You stopped handing over your strength in exchange for moments of affection. You stopped apologizing for being a man who loves deeply but refuses to be destroyed by it. That's what real power looks like. Not control over her, but control over you. And when you master that, everything becomes quiet. Not empty, clear. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.